Hello everybody, Nora here from Happy Dancing Turtle. I just wanted to show you one of the tools we use for astronomy and how it can help you plan a really fun family astronomy night or help you identify what you're seeing. You could look at it before you go out. You can also download it as an app to a mobile device so you can take it out with you. Or like I said, you can look at it before you go out, or if you have a night sky guide that's a book, you could bring that with, however you want to do it. But it is a pretty useful tool, so I just wanted to show it to you and then show you how to find some of the constellations that you might go out and look for this month. So real quick before I jump right in here, when you open up the Stellarium software on your computer or the app, just make sure that you put in your location, otherwise it's not going to do you much good. So put in where you are. You can adjust for all sorts of things in here like light pollution and stuff, but I'm not going to dive into that now. And the other thing is down here you can turn on and off a bunch of different features. So I can make the ground go away. I can make the directions go away. The atmosphere, which is nice, and you get this really dark view. I could add in planets. These are constellation labels and star labels. So choose your settings how you want. This is how you can fast forward through time, and you can see I have the date here and then the time that it's showing. So if I were to go outside where I live at this date and time, this is what I would see in the night sky. You can also open up this date and time window, which I think makes it a little bit easier to navigate. So I have it set to March 13th because it's a new moon, so there's going to be no moon that night, which makes it really awesome for stargazing. And I have it set to 8 o'clock in the evening. So if you have kids or you don't want to be out too late, this is a great time for that, especially this time of year because it's actually dark then, unlike summer when you have to wait till after 10. So let's take a look at some of the things that you might find in the sky when you go outside and that you can look up on Stellarium before you go. I'm going to click and drag over here. Oops, I guess I was already over there. To where I'm finding north. So if I were to go outside and look north, this is what I would see. I can zoom in and out a little too. So I'm going to look up and I see Ursa Major up there, or the Big Bear. And what the group of stars that we know as the Big Dipper is part of Ursa Major. So you can see that here. Most people have a pretty easy time finding the Big Dipper. It's a well-known constellation for a lot of people, and it kind of stands out in the night sky for a lot of the year. I actually think that the darker you go, if you find a spot that is really away from any sort of light pollution and you have a lot of stars out, I think it can get more difficult to find Ursa Major. But for most of us in slightly outside of the city or in rural areas where we do have some light pollution, this tends to really jump out to people. So find Ursa Major, and then you can use the ladle or the bowl part of Ursa Major here to find Ursa Minor. And in fact, if you follow these two stars kind of at the far end of our spoon here, right? I'm going to follow these stars and extend that line, and it will run me right into this star right here, which is Polaris, or most of us know this as the North Star. So it's always in the north part of the sky. This can be a really great tool if you need to find a direction. But finding the Big Dipper and then leading to Polaris and the Little Dipper here, Ursa Minor, Small Bear, is a really great tool when you're out for astronomy. Once you find these constellations, it's then easier to find other constellations in relation to them. So maybe you know that Draco is right near Ursa Minor, or we're going to talk about Leo later. So maybe I find Ursa Major and then look next to it for Leo. So use your star guides to look for new constellations in relation to constellations that you feel comfortable finding. Okay. The other constellations that I want to talk about for this time of the year are winter constellations, but we can still see them. Technically, we're actually still in winter, even though it's like 60 degrees outside here today. But we are still in winter, and we can still see these constellations pretty good through March and even a little bit into April, though they'll be getting lower and closer to the horizon and a little more difficult to see depending on where you are. All right, so you're going to want to look towards the southwest of the sky, or even more towards the south. And I think the first one that's going to pop out at you is Sirius. This is the brightest star in the sky. So a lot of people think that the North Star is the brightest star, and that's not true. It's not even in the top 20 of the brightest stars in the sky. So Sirius might jump out to you. Sirius is this star right here, and it is in this Canis Major constellation. In Greek mythology, this is said to be the hunting dog of Orion. So you can find Sirius kind of at the heels of Orion here. Jumping over to Orion, Orion has a bunch of very, very bright stars in it. Betelgeuse and Regal are both in the top 10 brightest stars in the sky. And then, of course, the three bright stars in Orion's belt tend to be fairly easy for people to identify. And then Orion's nebula, sometimes you can see that really bright here too, is this. We can zoom in on that a little. You might be able to see this as well. Okay. Orion in Greek mythology is a hunter, and he is, scroll back out, hunting this bull, Taurus, who's actually Zeus, but that's a long story. And Taurus has a very bright star in it, Aldebaran. It's kind of got an orangey glow to it, so you can look for that. And it also, right next to Taurus, is this group of very bright stars known as Pleiades, or the Seven Sisters. So that might be an easy find for you as well. And all these bright stars are right in a row, right in the same area of the night sky. So if I zoom back out, all of these very, very bright stars. So these three are easy to find during winter, but like I said, we can still see them now, and pretty soon we won't be able to see them anymore. So now is a great time to go out and look for those. This month, March, this is the month, March, yes. This month, Mars is also hanging out in this bright group of stars. So look for Mars kind of near the Seven Sisters, and as the month goes on, it will be kind of moving this way through Taurus during this time of day. I'm going to zoom out a little. Above Orion, you'll be able to find the twins, or Gemini. This is Pollux, and this other really bright star is Castor. And those two twinning bright stars make up the heads of this twin constellation. So that's another really bright one that you might be able to see. Capella is another bright star. I think this constellation is just so boring, and there's not really a great story to it, but it's fun to look for Capella, the bright star. So that's another one you might see. One of the spring constellations that they say to look for between February and May, we get a really good view of Leo this time of year. I think Leo's kind of hard to find, even though my guidebook says that it's an easy constellation. But you're going to want to look for this. This is the brightest star in it, Regulus, and it's kind of in the front paw. And then you'll kind of trace out this lion body and up the big main head. This group of stars is also sometimes called the sickle. So this might be easier for you to find first, the sickle shape, and then find the rest of the lion that way. The last star that I want to mention that you should look for this spring is Arcturus. Arcturus is the fourth brightest star in the sky. Right now, it's pretty early in the spring, and it will become easier to see the later in the spring. It's going to be really close to the horizon right now, but if I jump here a month, over in April, this is going to be one of the first stars we see rising in the east after it gets dark. And it is part of the constellation Boötes. It's kind of this kite shape constellation, and it's in Greek mythology. He's a herdsman, and this is a great starting point to find the rest of this kite-shaped constellation. So find that really bright Arcturus, and then find that kite shape coming out from Arcturus. Again, this is a spring constellation. It will become easier to find as spring goes on, and by end of May, June, it will be much higher in the sky right overhead. So be on the lookout for this one in the next couple months. The other thing I wanted to show you in Stellarium here, I didn't really delve into the stories of any of these stars. Most of us are somewhat familiar with the Greek mythology that goes along with the stars, and I could do a whole class on that. I love telling those stories. But one of my favorite things about this program is that you can actually, let me remember where to find it. Here we go. If you click In your sky and viewing options window, so you can go over to star lore, and you can learn about the stories of the stars from all of these different cultures around the world, which I think is really cool. So maybe you want to know the Egyptian stories of the sky. Maybe if you're here in the Minnesota area, you want to know the Ojibwe stories of the sky. And then the constellations then are going to change. So what a lot of us know as Orion is known as the winter maker for the Ojibwe because it's so prominent in the winter sky. But it's just really fun to learn different stories, and all of these stars played so many important roles for so many cultures around the world, and it's just really interesting to hear some of the other stories that are associated with the stars. Also really encourage you to tell your own star story. So go out with your family, find a shape that looks interesting, decide what you think it looks like, and tell the story about how it got there, why it's in the sky, or why it's important. And it's a really fun way to pass an evening with your family. Whatever you do, enjoy the night sky this spring. Hopefully this has been helpful for you. Bye-bye.